you're very fast with solving these questions is to use the elimination method, basically. That is what I'll be using majorly as we progress in solving this question. So question one, the gas is placed in a sealed container with a fixed volume. Now, this is very important. The volume of the gas is fixed. The gas is heated, so expect that when you heat the gas, the particles will begin to move faster or vibrate, hit the walls of the container, basically. So which statements are correct now? When the gas molecules are heated, of course, you expect them to move faster. The gas particles will collide with the walls more frequently, yes, because the average kinetic energy of the particles has increased. The pressure in the container decreases. No, because you already talked about a fixed volume. So the pressure has no role to play there. So it's basically anything that has 3 is off. So we have this that is 3 off. So 1 and 2 are correct, so, and that gives us this. Right. So for the next one, question 2, we have a sample of we have a heating curve showing how a sample of ethanol basically undergoes the heating process. All right. So just by looking at this, you'd see that we have a heating curve where we have to label. So the first step is to label the heating curve. So since it's heating curve, there's 1 to 2 is the solid state basically, and then of course depending on the direction you're working with. But since we are going towards this direction, basically we'll call that so we can call here the melting point. So if it were in the reversible direction, this would have been the freezing point. So I'll label that as FP. All right, and then this is now the liquid. So the slanted ones are the states at which they are, while the vertical lines are the horizontal lines are the change of state. Okay, so this is liquid now. So when we get to this point, like we said, this place becomes you could call that the boiling point, or we call it the evaporation point. And then the reverse, of course, can refer to that as the condensation point. All right, and then this 5 to 6 becomes the gas. So G, I represent that as G. So when you label that, it gives you a clearer perspective of what to do. So let's look at the options. Option A says ethanol changes its physical state between 3 and 4. Okay, so ethanol changes physical state between, that's wrong, because there is no change of state going on here. It's just liquid, so this is off. Ethanol condenses between 2 and 3. This is equally off because we can see only melting and freezing going on at least between 2 and 3. So it's not condensation going on here. That makes this go off. Then the third one says energy is absorbed between 3 and 4, but not absorbed between 4 and 5. Okay, so 4 and 5 is where you could see a lot of energy being absorbed when the condensation is taking place. But when we look at 3, 2, and 3, okay, when we look at 3 and 4 rather, you see 3 and 4, it's just the liquid. There is no change of state occurring there. Okay, so this is off. And then for the last option, of course, it has to definitely be the last option because more energy is absorbed between 4 and 5 than freezing, which is an exothermic reaction. So that is why we go with D. Since we talk about energy is absorbed, we're looking at endothermic reaction. Let's sort that out. Move to question 3. All right, for question 3, we have that which atom has an equal number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. So for this particular question, you have to look at the periodic table to know the proton numbers of each of these elements. But we know argon is basically 18. So argon is 18, and then there is a mass number of 40. So with argon 18, definitely the proton is 18. The electrons is going to be 18 as well, because it's a neutral atom. But the neutrons, number of neutrons is going to be 40 minus 18. So that's going to give you 22. That is when you subtract 18 from 40, that's going to give you something around 22. So it's not A, and it equally can't be B. Okay, it can't be B. For sodium 23, so sodium 23, 11, Proton is 11 as usual. Electrons is equally 11. Then the neutrons will be 23 minus 11. That's 12. So it's not this. So it's definitely this because nitrogen is 7. Proton number 7 or 14. So the P is 7. The E is 7 as well. So by the time we get the N is going to be 14 minus 7, which is 7. So that is why that is basically correct thing to do there. So it's quite a straightforward question, basically. So just have to erase this because of the next question. We have enough space to solve. Okay, so question 4. We have a question on relative atomic mass. We have that the only naturally occurring isotopes in a sample of europium are this and this. So we have the mass number, relative atomic mass as to be 152. We also have the atomic mass given. Okay, so what is the percentage of 151 of europium present in this sample to three significant figures? Okay, so remember the formula that the relative atomic mass is the percentage abundance. The sum of the percentage abundance is times the mass of each of them involved, and then we were able to compute that. So basically, we just go because of we've done a couple of videos on this before. So we'll just pick out the relative atomic mass, which is 152, which is already given. So 152 equal to, okay. So the first isotope, which is europium 151. So the percentage is unknown according to the question. So we can simply represent that as an unknown. So let's say X over 100, because it's a percentage basically, multiplied by the europium 151, which is 151 plus. Okay, then we do the second isotope. So the second isotope is that of europium 153, but remember that the sum of the percentages should be 100. So if this is X, that means the second isotope should be 100 minus X. Since the sum of both isotopes percentages should give you 100. So 100 minus X is the value of the second one divided by 100, since it's the percentage, multiplied by 153. So this is the way to go about this, by applying the knowledge of using the unknown to get the known. Okay, so from here, based on your knowledge of mathematics, we can move forward to say, let's see how we can manage this space. So we could simply say that 152 is equivalent to 151x all over 100 plus. So this is going to multiply everything in here. So we're going to have 15300 minus 153x, everything over 100. Okay, so this is the second step. So from this second step, we can move forward to say that 152 can be equal to, so solving fractions now, they have this a common denominator, so it's all 100. Make it 100, then becomes 151x, okay, plus 15300 minus 153x. All right, sorry, erase this so that it's visible. So minus 153x. Okay, so I'll move in here. Let me erase this now so that we can kind of manage the space. Okay, so from the step we have there, so we could cross multiply, and then we're going to have cross multiplication here. This is like over 1. So cross multiplication, we're going to have 15200 equivalent to 151x, yep, plus 15300 minus 153x. Okay, so collecting like terms, you have 15200. So this goes there, becomes minus 15300 equals to 151x minus 153x. So this becomes negative 100 equals to minus 2x. So to obtain x, divide by minus 2, so this cancels out. And then your x is basically 50%. And that will be the percentage of the first isotope. So the percentage of the first isotope is 50%. So if you want to get that of the second isotope, just do 100 minus the 50 and you get the other 50%. So this is how it works. We'll move to the next question. Question 5. What statement about potassium chloride is correct? It has a melting point. It has a high melting point because it's a giant structure. It is not. It doesn't have strong covalent bonds. It's an ionic compound, so no. It conducts electricity when solid because of its oppositely charged ions. It doesn't conduct electricity when solid, so you have to be very careful with this line. It only conducts electricity in the molten or liquid or aqueous state precisely. It conducts electricity when molten because that ion to move. This is correct. It's insoluble in water because it's soluble. So the answer to this is C. Okay, we get to this. I think we're able to solve this in the paper 4. I have something similar in paper 4. So I've just won't waste time with this. Already know that it's the answer has to be B. Remember, it's nitrogen 7, so 2,5. So the bonding would all enclose themselves in this. So if you watch the paper 4 video where I explain how we go about this.
A lot, and you're like, okay, do you have a private tuition? Don't you have? Do you have? And yes, Ajiro Tech do have a private tuition. So by my right, you can see that we have for the Edexcel and Cambridge IGCSE, and yes, we do have for all subjects. Okay, all subjects. Okay, the popular ones that's always been in demand is mathematics, English language as a second language. Okay, we have physics, we have biology, we have chemistry, and we have the flagship, which is ICT, just here and there. We also have business studies. So if you're interested for a private tuition, I think all you have to do is send an email to the sales team at ajirotech@gmail.com, and they would reply to you, talk about your time zone, talk about and the fee is really quite affordable. Really, it's really quite affordable. It's when you look at it across other tutoring service, I think this is the one that's quite affordable and you get the very best of service. We also have for the E-levels as well, and also for the Edexcel. So we have for the Cambridge E-levels and Edexcel E-levels. Okay, and we have also across the subject mathematics, which is usually the hot cake when it comes to E-level, mathematics and chemistry, and then biology. These are usually one of the ones we have in demand always, all the time. Even physics, for E-level. So all you have to do, if you're watching this right now and you are interested for a private tuition, then you can do yourself a solid, okay, and send an email to the sales team at ajiro@gmail.com and they'll reply to you.
Okay, so on question 7, which statement about silicon dioxide is correct? Okay, so it contains silicon ions. No, it doesn't have ions because it's a covalent structure, so it doesn't have ions. It's used in electrical circuit because it can't conduct electricity. It's a covalent compound. Its bonds each contain one shared pair of electrons. Yes, by the time you look at the structure, its atoms are arranged the same way as the atoms in graphite. Not exactly. Okay, so answer to this is basically C. 3 organic molecules are described. The molecular formula of this is this. We have molecular formulas all outlined. Which molecules have the same empirical formula? Okay, so To get the empirical formula, we have to count the actual number of atoms here. So we have 3 carbons here. So 3 carbons, that's 1, 2, 3. Hydrogens, we have 5 plus 1, that's 6. And then 2 oxygens. For lactic acid, we have 3 carbon atoms again. We have 3 plus 1, 4, 5, 6 hydrogens. And 3 oxygens. 3 oxygen atoms, basically. And then for glucose, of course, glucose is C6H12O6. So, all right, so we're going to simplify this now. So we cannot simplify this. This cannot be simplified. Okay. But if we simplify this, you see that we are going to have C3 can divide all through. We're going to have CH2O. Okay, because 3 divided by 6 here is 2, and 3 divided by 3 1. So CH2O. But this as well, we have 6 dividing all through. We have CH2O. So of course, lactic and glucose have the same empirical formula. So that would be H is going to be D, the answer. Question 9. Okay, calcium carbonate reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid. We have the equation of the reaction. They told that 1 gram of calcium carbonate is added to 50 centimeter cube of 0.05 mole per gm cube of hydrochloric acid. And we're asked to find which volume of carbon dioxide is made in this reaction. So we have 1 gram of calcium carbonate, but we don't have much information about calcium carbonate, but we have more information about the acid. So we dwell more on the acid. So first is to get the number of moles of the acid. Since we have the concentration of the acid and we have the volume of the acid. So as expected, we have to convert the volume. So the formula that links them up is that N, the number of moles is CV, so that's C times V. Okay, so from here we have 0.05 as the concentration, and then the volume. So the volume is in cm cubed, so to get it in dm cubed, just divide by 1000. So we make use of your calculator, and then we do 50 divided by 1000. That would give you trying to do that here. That'll give you 0.05 as well. So always remember that your volume needs to be in the same unit as the concentration, the volume part of the concentration. So that is what we did here. So I'll just write it here in case so 50 divided by 1000 as to change the volume to dm cube. So we have 0.05 multiplied by 0.05. So we have the number of moles to be 0.0025 moles. Okay, so since we have the number of moles now, we can go ahead to do a mole ratio comparison and then solve the question. So if we do a mole ratio comparison, we have HCl ratio, the gas, which is CO2. Then look at the balance equation. Their ratios are 2:1. That's from the balanced equation. If you see the coefficient here is 2, coefficient here 1. But you already calculated the number of moles of the acid. So what would 0.0025 be? So 0.00 will give you X. So solve for X here. In case you have 2X equals to 0.0025. To divide this by 2, so let's have that calculation now. We have 0.00125, so 0.00125 moles. Now, so this is number of moles of the carbon dioxide gas. But we have to find the volume. We have the moles of carbon dioxide by using the mole ratio. So to get the volume of carbon dioxide gas, remember the relationship, the formula is volume, the number of moles equals to volume over 24 dm cubed. So this is the formula for calculating the volume of a gas. So basically, to get the volume, it's going to be 24 dm cubed times the number of moles we calculated. So let's do that. So 0.00125 times 24. So I'm having 0.03. So that's 0.03 dm cube. But our answer needs to be in cm cube. So by the time you multiply that by 1000, they're going to have 30 CMQ just because there's no real space to write all of this information. I believe if you listen, you'd be able to follow through. Okay, so that's for that. For
a lot, and you're like, okay, do you have a private tuition? Don't you have? Do you have? And yes, Ajiro Tech do have a private tuition. So by my right, you can see that we have for the EdExcel and Cambridge IGCSE, and yes, we do have for all subjects. Okay, all subjects. Okay, the popular ones that's always been in demand is mathematics, English language as a second language. Okay, we have physics, we have biology, we have chemistry, and we have the flagship, which is ICT, just here and there. We also have business studies. So if you're interested for a private tuition, I think all you have to do is send an email to the sales team at ajirotech@gmail.com, and they would reply to you, talk about your time zone, talk about, and the fee is really quite affordable. Really, it's really quite affordable. It's when you look at it across other tutoring service, I think this is the one that's quite affordable, and you get the very best of service. We also have for the E-levels as well, and also for the EdExcel. So we have for the Cambridge E-levels and EdExcel E-levels. Okay, and we have also across the subject mathematics, which is usually the hot cake when it comes to E-level, mathematics and chemistry, and then biology. These are usually one of the ones we have in demand always, all the time, even physics, for E-level. So all you have to do, if you're watching this right now and you are interested for a private tuition, then you can do yourself a solid, okay, and send an email to the sales team at ajiro@gmail.com, and they'll reply to you.
question 10 now. The diagram, we have the diagram of electroplating reaction, basically. So the student makes three statements. The steel object turns reddish brown, the aqueous copper 2 sulfate changes. Okay, so let's just talk about this. So of course, when you're electroplating, of course, you know that this copper, the electrons, the ions of copper basically move to the surface of this. Basically, there's a migration of the ions there. All right, but the electrolyte is equally aqueous copper 2 sulfate. So meaning that as the aqueous copper 2 sulfate, of course, has copper 2 plus ions, which will also move to attach itself to this electrode as well. So basically, the steel object turns reddish brown. Yes, because copper electron or copper ions, basically, let's use copper ions because it's an ionic solution. So copper ions are moving to the surface of the steel, which that's correct. So the second one says the aqueous copper 2 sulfate changes to a paler blue color. No, the color remains the same basically because as copper is being lost from the electrolyte, the electrode returns it back. So it's basically a balanced reaction going on there. So this is off for this thing. Okay, and then the third one says the copper electrode becomes thinner. Yes, that's exactly correct due to the movement of the ions to the cathode, basically. So 3 is good. So question 10, we have 1 and 3 to be correct. All right, go to question 11. Concentrated aqueous sodium chloride is electrolyzed. So sodium chloride, since it's concentrated aqueous, we have sodium ion, chloride ion. We have aqueous part of it is the hydrogen ion and the hydroxide ions. These are concerned with this is anode and this is the cathode, basically. So our focus is on the anode. So concentrated aqueous, since concentrated aqueous, this is moving, Okay, have more ions of this present in that. The concentration of this is more, so this is simply going to do so, and that means that anode loss of electron, so it's B. For it to be this, it has to be dilute aqueous. So since it's not dilute aqueous, it's concentrated aqueous, it has to be chloride ion. If we go to question 12, which equation represents the overall reaction in hydrogen-oxygen fuel cell? I think this is quite easy. It's just A. Okay, so we have hydrogen gas reacting with oxygen gas to give water, and it's a balanced equation. All right, go to question 13. Water is added to anhydrous copper 2 sulfate. The mixture becomes hot. Okay, that tells you it's exothermic. It is released to the surrounding. So what type of reaction? Definitely not endothermic. It has to be exothermic because it is given off. So for it to be exothermic, you know that the energy of the reactant should be higher than that of the product. And that's what makes C correct. So this should be higher than this. So that when you do the subtraction, you get a negative change in enthalpy. All right. Question 14. Now the equation represents the reaction between ethanoic acid and ethanol. What type of reaction does this show? Definitely not addition reaction because addition reactions give one product. Not this, not neutralization as well. Because it has to be an acid and a base or an alkaline. It's not reduction. If we look at it, it's not reduction. It's reversible. You see this? So it's a reversible reaction. Okay, question 15. The graph shows the result of adding excess calcium carbonate to hydrochloric acid at two temperatures, basically. So we have a curve to represent that information. Which rule describes the reacting particles at 30 degree compared? Of course, at 30 degree, the frequency of collision should be lower. So not higher, it should be lower. It's a lower temperature. So frequency of collision should be lower. Average kinetic energy should equally be lower. So it's D here. This is quite straightforward. Okay, let's go to question 16 now. Industrially, ammonia is made by the Uber process. It's an exothermic reaction. The conditions used are 450 degrees Celsius and 200 atm, right? Which statement about the conditions are correct? Now, temperatures below 450 degree give a slower rate of reaction. Yes, this is quite correct because, of course, lower temperature, lower rate of reaction, higher temperature, higher rate of reaction. Temperatures below 450 degree give a lower yield of ammonia. No. Okay, this is a reaction at equilibrium, and it's an exothermic reaction. Remember, the knowledge of equilibrium, factors that affect equilibrium position, when you increase the temperature of the increase the temperature of an exothermic reaction, equilibrium shifts to the left. When you drop the temperature, equilibrium shifts to the right. So since this is an exothermic reaction, if we drop the temperature, equilibrium shifts to the right, meaning you produce more yield of ammonia. So this is wrong. You should have higher yield of ammonia when you drop the temperature, since it is exothermic. The third point says pressures above 200 atm give a lower yield. Okay, for us to look at pressure, we have to look at the number of gaseous molecules involved. So for the reactant N, we have four moles of gas involved. That's 3 plus 1 here. And for the product, we have just 2 moles gas. So if you increase the temperature, it should favor the side with a lesser gaseous moles. So increase in temperature should favor the side with lesser moles. So since we are raising the pressure, since we're raising the pressure, not temperature, we're increasing the pressure here. So it should produce more ammonia because increase in pressure favors the side with fewer gaseous moles. And since the right-hand side has fewer gaseous moles, this is wrong. Pressures above 200 atm are too expensive to maintain. That is quite correct. So we have 1 and 4. So B is the correct answer to this. Okay, go to question 17. Ethanol is warmed with acidified aqueous potassium manganate 7. which row shows the type of reaction of the ethanol and the color change observed in the reaction mixture. Of course, you know that this is an oxidation reaction, one of the reactions of ethanol under organic chemistry. So it's oxidation. And then you know your potassium, aqueous potassium carbonate is purple in color. So it is reduced in this case. So it's going to be purple to colorless. So 17 is B. Question 18, two experiments involving acids R and S are done, right? This is the number of moles of acid R that you use in 500 centimeter cube of water, but not all of it dissociated, okay? That tells you that it's a weak acid. Since you're using 0.1 mole and just 0.048 dissociated. Then for the second acid, 0.1 mole again was used in the same volume of water, but still not all of it dissociated. Okay, so this basically tells us that both of them are weak acids. Right, so none of them happens to be a strong acid, because if they were strong acid, then all of the number of moles should have dissociated. Definitely, it's G, because both of them simply show that they are weak acids. The 2-sulfate is an insoluble salt, which process is not used to prepare a pure sample of this salt. Okay, we can't use crystallization because it's an insoluble salt, so that's straightforward. Okay, question 30. We use some of this substance, this test for water. So if you remember, you know it's 5, 6. Okay, so this is also very easy. So 5, 6. The properties of the element change from left to right across the periodic table. Which statement describes how the properties change across period 3? Okay, across period 3, the elements are not changing from gases to solids, though that is not correct. Elements change from non-conductors to electrical conductors, no. Because we're moving from metals towards non-metals. The element change from metals to non-metals, this is good. Elements have a decreasing number of electron shells. No, since they are in the same period, they have the same number of shells. So the answer is C.
A lot, and you're like, okay, do you have a private tuition? Don't you have? Do you have? And yes, Ajiro Tech do have a private tuition. So by my right, you can see that we have for the EdExcel and Cambridge IGCSE, and yes, we do have for all subjects. Okay, all subjects. Okay, the popular ones that's always been in demand is mathematics, English language as a second language. Okay, we have physics, we have biology, we have chemistry, and we have you know, the flagship, which is ICT, just here and there. We also have business studies. So if you're interested for a private tuition, I think all you have to do is send an email to the sales team at ajirotech@gmail.com, and they would reply to you, talk about your time zone, talk about and the fee is really quite affordable. Really, it's really quite affordable. It's when you look at it across other tutoring service, I think this is the one that's quite affordable and you get the very best of service. We also have for the E-levels as well, and also for the EdExcel. So we have for the Cambridge E-levels and EdExcel E-levels. Okay, and we have also across the subject mathematics, which is usually the hot cake when it comes to E-level, mathematics and chemistry, and then biology. These are usually one of the ones we have in demand always, all the time. Even physics, you know, for E-level. So all you have to do, if you're watching this right now and you are interested for a private tuition, then you can do yourself a solid, okay, and send an email to the sales team at ajiro@gmail.com and they'll reply to you.
For 22, which property decreases down group 7 of the periodic table from chlorine to iodine? Definitely not the atomic number because it's increasing, definitely not density, definitely not the melting point. So it's the reactivity. Okay, because the most reactive one is fluorine. So as we go down the group, reactivity decreases. For the next question, some properties of all elements are listed. Okay, which properties are correct for both iron and lithium? Now, you know, iron is a transition element, while lithium is a group 1 element. So we have to factor that in. So only transition elements have variable oxidation state. So anything that has 4 is wrong because lithium is not a transition element. So we're left with just 2 options here. They have good electrical conductivity. Yes, they are both metals, so they should have good electrical. They have high melting point. No, just the transition elements have high melting point. So this is off because it doesn't apply to lithium. They are malleable, of course, metals are malleable. So A is the answer to this. 2 statements about noble gases are listed. Noble gases are reactive. No, they're not reactive, but they are monoatomic. Yes. Noble gases have full outer shell of electrons. Yes. So from here, we could say that both statements are not correct. Both statements are correct. This is off. Both statements are correct. No. Statement 1 is correct. No. Statement 1 is wrong. Statement 2 is correct, but statement 1 is wrong. Yes. This is the correct answer to this. Which statement about the properties and uses of copper is correct? Copper is used in electrical wiring and it is ductile. Because it's a metal, of course, it is ductile. It is mixed with tin to make the alloy brass. No, not with tin. Okay. Zinc should be correct in here. Mixed with zinc. It is used in the wired because no, it doesn't have low density. It's used in takeaway food. No, aluminium fits into this one. So answer here is straightforward. It's A. 26. These 3 statements about solid Z are listed. Okay. What is solid Z? You said solid Z react with dilute hydrochloric acid to produce hydrogen. That means it must be a very reactive metal. So gold is not reactive, silver is not as reactive as hydrogen for it to displace hydrogen in that reaction. It reacts very slowly with cold water. Of course, you should know that magnesium does this. So B. Okay, we get to question 27. 4 metals are given. Okay, so this is more of a displacement reaction going on here. So let's pick it one after the other. We have that J has a greater tendency to form positive ions than K. So for J to be able to have a greater tendency of forming positive ions than K, it means J is more reactive than K. Okay, so let's look at it. From the table, can J displace K? Yes, J can displace K. So this statement is correct. Because look at this, when J was placed in a solution of K, it displaced K. So that proves it's right. L has a greater tendency to form positive ions than J. So we are saying L is more reactive. L is more reactive than J. Is that true? Can L displace J? No. So this is off. Got it. L cannot displace J. So this is off. K cannot displace L as well. M cannot displace K. So you have just an answer here. So A. 28. Extraction of iron from hematite. Of course, you know it's reduction. Okay. Using coke. Galvanizing prevents iron from rusting. So which statements about galvanizing are correct? Okay, so we have galvanizing involves coating the iron with silver. No, we don't do that in galvanizing. Coat with zinc. So this is off. So everything about 1 is gone. So we have just 2 options left. Galvanizing prevents oxygen and water from coming into contact with the iron. Yes. Galvanizing works because the metal coating loses electrons more than the iron. That's good. So this is correct then. Okay, we go to question 30. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are essential elements for improved plant growth. Okay, which mixture provides all 3 elements? Okay, when we talk about fertilizers now, we have the 3 of them, NPK. We should look for these 3 elements in the compound now: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, NPK. So we look at option A now. Okay, it has N, it has P, it has K. Option B has N and P, no K. Option C has N and P, no K. Off. Option D has N and K, no P, so it's A. Okay, question 31. Which statements help explain why an increasing amount of carbon dioxide or methane in the atmosphere causes global warming? All right, so carbon dioxide absorbs thermal energy from the air. Yes. Good. Methane does not absorb thermal energy from the sun. Oh, this is wrong. Carbon dioxide does not reflect thermal energy from the sun to the earth. It does. This is wrong. Methane reflects thermal energy from the earth back to the earth. This is correct. So we have it's one and B. So that's that. There's two. The exhaust gases from nitrogen contains oxides of nitrogen. So how are these oxides of nitrogen formed? Straightforward. Under chemistry of the environment, you know that the nitrogen and oxygen from the air react together at the high temperatures in the engine. That is how they are formed. Question 33. You have the structural formula of methyl ethanoate. Which compounds are structural isomers of methyl ethanoate? Okay, structural isomers. So this is a structural isomer because this is now ethyl methanoate. So this is good. This is propanoic acid. Of course, it has to be because there are 3 carbons here. It fits into the same number of atoms involved. So 3 carbons, 6 hydrogens, 2 oxygens. But for this, is not because we have more hydrogens than the structure we are working with. So that makes 3 off. So we have 1 and 2 as the answer. So total number of covalent bonds in the molecule, in one molecule of propane. So we have to draw propane. So 1, 2, 3. Then you have all the hydrogens dashed. Okay, so covalent bonds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 covalent bonds in that structure. So C. Industrially, ethanol is produced by fermentation or by reaction of ethene with steam. Which row is correct? Fermentation doesn't use a temperature of 100 degrees, so this is off. Fermentation needs the presence of yeast. That's correct. Ethene plus steam needs a catalyst. We need a catalyst. That's the acid. So this is off. Fermentation is slow, while this is fast. This is correct. Fermentation high yield, no. So our answer is C. Question 36. Some properties of an organic compound here are listed. It's a liquid at room temperature. It is soluble in water. Okay, it's a solution of J reacts with calcium carbonate. This should tell you that this is an acid. That solution J is an acid. So this shows the acid nature of this. It has a pH again. So these 2 points tells you that it's an acid. So of course, D, that's the only acid in the option. 37. The structures of 2 monomers that are used, okay, to make a condensation polymer. All right. So of course, you know that a dicarboxylic and a diol. All right. So the carboxylic group will leave. So this is going to form the water. This is going to form, and then for the alcohol, you are removing just the H, and you're removing just the H. So we're going to picture the structure without these things I've circled. So look at the options that fit in. You see that it is not A. Okay. And let's look at B. Basically, you see for B, it fits in because this is the carboxylic group. This is the carboxylic contribution. This is where the alcohol starts. So you can see it fits in, and there's the continuation bonds at the extreme ends. So that is how you do this question. Just remove off the functional groups that should leave. Question 38. I'm going to measure 25 centimeter cube of aqueous sodium hydroxide. Of course, you need a volumetric pipette for that. Exact volume. Which method is used to obtain copper 2 sulfate crystals from an aqueous solution of copper 2 sulfate? Okay, so evaporation. Okay, it's a solution. So by the time you evaporate the solution to the point of crystallization, you should obtain crystals of that. And finally, for question 40, we have a mixture of 4 different colorless amino acids. You have the chromatogram, and then why does the chromatogram only show 3 spots when you should be having 4 spots? It's not about the leaking agent because you can see that other ones are visible. So no, one of the amino acids is insoluble in the solvent. No, that is also not correct because they are all definitely soluble. The solvent front is too near. No, that's not even it. Okay, so 2 of the amino acids have the same RF value. Yes, so that's why that's the best way to look at it. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the paper. Thank you for subscribing and watching. So please continue to share with your friends.